Hey everyone, so today I'm taking a look at Apple's Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pro. Let's check it out. Alright, so this is it. This is the Magic Keyboard. I already have it on my iPad. It's the older model, as you can tell from the camera cutout here, but that is okay. So let's take a look at the outside first. So this thing is thick, like 3 C's thick. It adds a lot of weight. When I picked up the package, it felt like it was the same weight as an iPad. So it almost like doubles the weight of your iPad, at least to your feel. Especially because it's such a dense thing. So this is the 11-inch iPad, not the larger one, the smaller one. Because it's so dense, it actually feels heavier in your hand than like a MacBook, for example. Because the MacBook has a larger surface area, you kind of expect it to have a certain weight. Whereas this thing, because it's so compact, you don't expect it to weigh so much. Now on the back, there is the debossed Apple logo. So as you can see, if the focus is there, but yes, there is an Apple logo there. I mean, I'm not a big fan. I wish it was just plain. I prefer like a plain stealth look, but it is what it is. There it is. It is still possible to put your Apple Pencil here, so the magnetic spot is still available. Now let's get this thing open. So this is the bottom part, and to open it, you basically put it flat. You kind of need 2 hands because it's held down magnetically. You have to put your finger there to lift it up. And once it reaches this part, it kind of holds in place. There's some sort of friction here. And then as you open it, it clicks into place at this kind of angle. This is the angle we're talking about here. It's not quite 90 degrees, maybe 80 or 85 degrees. That's when it clicks in place. So I'll just demonstrate that again. So after this angle, it kind of just, it can just fall down, right? If you lift it up, again, it clicks in place about there. And then from here, if you keep pushing it, that's when that floating mechanism comes into play. So now this is as far back as it goes. You can tilt it anywhere between that 80 degree, 85 degree angle and basically here. And the whole thing is held down by magnets. So if you just lift it off and the iPad is free. It uses the same smart connector dock thingy. There's 3 pins here, which line up with the 3 pins on the back. And to put it on, basically, you just pop it on like that. And then it attaches fairly securely. Now let's do that again. So to close it, you do this, and then you just drop it down, and so on. Now, I have the original Folio keyboard here, and I happen to have a second iPad just lying around. So this is what it looks like. This is the original Folio keyboard. This is kind of the thickness you're gonna get. So I'll just put that side by side. And on camera, it looks kind of similar, but when you have it in front of you, you can tell that the Magic Keyboard is quite a bit thicker. That's the kind of thickness you can expect here. Now, material-wise, at first glance, they look like the same kind of material, but if you look at it closely, the Folio keyboard is much glossier, as you can see here, whereas the Magic Keyboard feels a little bit maybe less plasticky. This one feels almost grippy to the touch. This one feels a bit smoother. Smoother may not be the right word, but maybe more leather-like feel to it. I'm not sure how well this will hold up over use. As you can see, this one, you can see marks on it, rub marks, I guess, just over using this over a few years. Whereas this one, it feels like it might hold up the same. It doesn't feel any better or any, more rugged or anyway. But yeah, it's a bit darker and a bit softer. Now let's take a close look at this hinge mechanism here. So there is this cylindrical hinge which goes along the back of the iPad here, and as you can see, it's like a cylinder. I think it's metal. Feels like it's metal. Now when you open it, if you observe the cover, it slowly extends out a little bit. So this plastic cover extends out a little bit. It's not a real problem, it's just a design thing that I noticed. When it's laying flat on the table, this will get pushed out a little bit. But I guess this is just a plastic cover that covers that cylindrical hinge. If you take a closer look in here, there is actually a slight cutout. It looks like there's some sort of back to it, which rotates in that cutout there. Now with the Magic Keyboard in its open position, this is a very handsome looking keyboard. Very handsome looking setup here. So it does have that floating look. The display or the iPad is kind of floating in midair, whereas the keyboard is flat on the table. Now you can adjust this like so. Now the keyboard itself, this is kind of what it sounds like. It is backlit, so you probably can't see it, it's a bit bright here, but it is backlit. The keys feel like the original scissor switches, so it's not the butterfly mechanism. There is quite a bit of travel and it feels really quite nice to the touch. Now the thing I don't like so far is there's no escape button. Now I don't know what escape kind of does on iPad, but it's still nice to have some sort of escape button, especially to quickly cancel something, which is what I'm used to doing here anyway. Now the trackpad is on the small side, but I think for this form factor, it actually works very well. Now, I'm sure you've seen those videos about how the pointer works. As you get closer to certain icons, it kind of just auto locks like an aimbot to the icons here. That does feel pretty nice. All the usual shortcuts work, so Command Space to do your search here, and Command H to go home, and also you can Command Tab between your open apps. Since I have two iPads here and I also have the old Folio keyboard, I think it's a good chance to compare the viewing angles you can get from both of these cases. So you have the Magic Keyboard on the left and then the original Folio keyboard on the right. Now, as you can see, this is as far back as you can go. So in terms of viewing angles, you're kind of limited to kind of the same thing. So at its maximum angle, it's exactly the same as the maximum angle of the Folio keyboard. Now, having said that, you do get the unlimited freedom between about, what's this, like 85, 80-ish degrees and all the way to whatever that angle is. So you do have a bit of flexibility in here, but don't expect to get a wider angle by switching over to the Magic Keyboard. Now, of course, in terms of typing performance, the Magic Keyboard is like night and day compared to the old Folio keyboard. You have actual keys here. So as you type, this is what it sounds like. I would say that it is quieter than the butterfly switches on a MacBook Pro. It's very comparable to the original scissor switches that you were used to get on the MacBooks, and probably similar to the 16-inch MacBook Pro as well. And just for comparison, this is what the original Folio keyboard sounds like. So the sound is much softer and muted on the Folio keyboard because you are looking at, like plastic switches that are basically covered by a film here. So that is kind of what you expect. Now there is one advantage of the Folio keyboard over the Magic Keyboard is that this thing is basically waterproof, at least on the key area here, because it's just one film. So if you accidentally spill juice or like water on your keyboard, on the Folio keyboard, you'll be safe. But if you do spill anything onto the Magic Keyboard, these switches are not covered, or these keys are not covered, so any liquid will definitely get inside there. So all the settings for this keyboard are actually found inside the Settings app. So if you head here and then go to General, and then there is Keyboard, and there is the Hardware keyboard up here. So if you go there, there's the input methods you have. But also this is where you control the keyboard brightness. You can slide this to increase or decrease the brightness on your keyboard. And for the trackpad, again, it's also in the general settings. It's underneath keyboard. So you go to trackpad, you can adjust your tracking speed, you can turn natural scrolling on or off, and you can also enable the tap to click. So I did enable tap to click, and for me, I preferred natural scrolling off, so I turned that off as well. So Apple have built in a lot of gestures onto this tiny trackpad, and I like that it's wide because your hand is, wide. You can fit easily 4 or 3 fingers on this trackpad, and that allows you to do the gestures that they have built into iPadOS and also into the Magic Keyboard. So all your usual gestures are there. It's kind of like a mix of the macOS gestures and also like the iOS and iPadOS gestures. It's all kind of intertwined into each other. So to go home, you can just do 3 fingers up quickly, and then whatever application you have just gets minimized. You can also 3 fingers up and hold, and then it goes into your multitasking kind of view here. You can switch to TFT, which is the favorite game I'm playing right now, or just 3 fingers up to close it again. You can, if you open an app like, say, LumaFusion here, you can scrub through the timeline like this, so left and right. So basically 2 finger scrolling works extremely well. And also, I really like the fact that you can actually pinch to zoom. So for this particular workflow that I have, you can pinch to zoom and you can expand the timeline and get really into the details if you really want to like cut this particular part of the timeline, which is really nice. Again, 2 finger scrolling up and down works as expected as well. And you can quickly switch between apps by doing the 3 finger or the 4 finger swipe. So that's 4 fingers. It works the same, 3 fingers or 4 fingers, they both work. So you can quickly scrub through your recent apps like so. Now with the trackpad, you can also use it just like you would with the finger basically. If you hover down here, you will bring up your dock and you can choose the apps you want. Or you can hover to the right and then pull again, and then it'll bring up that sidecar view. So that's my cheat sheet for when I'm playing TFT. So the trackpad, besides being really nice and smooth, it actually clicks everywhere. So you can think of it as like one giant button. You can click it here, 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 here. Basically anywhere. Pretty cool. So Apple also includes a USB-C port on the keyboard. It's on the left side here, so that's that port there. Now it only works for charging. You can't plug in thumb drives or any peripherals or accessories. This only works for charging. So the keyboard itself hasn't got a battery. It is completely powered by the iPad. So as soon as you take it off, the keyboard turns off. And if you pull it back in, the power resumes, and then basically the keyboard is alive again. So just some finishing thoughts about this Magic Keyboard. It is quite amazing. The fact that they've got this kind of floating hinge design. I can understand why they did this because they need the center of gravity kind of over the hinge, otherwise the whole thing will just topple. So I can see why they had to do this kind of Z kind of configuration here, and it is quite nice. I wish it extended further back, but again, that's the whole center of gravity thing, or the center of mass. If it tilts back any further, then this whole thing will probably topple. So they have kind of limited to this position here. The build quality of the hardware is of course Apple standard. It is absolutely amazing. I love the backlit keyboard. The trackpad is really quite amazing for this small size trackpad. They have actually made sure that it was plenty wide enough so that all your fingers can work on this trackpad, and it works very well. Now in terms of pricing, this thing is expensive. Depending on where you are, this might cost like almost a quarter of the price of your iPad, especially for the older model here. So this is very expensive. If you do a lot of typing, then yes, I guess this makes sense. If you don't, and you're just thinking that this could be a cool case, I would say stay away. Get the Folio keyboard. I think that's actually more versatile than this Magic Keyboard. Now, if application developers include more shortcuts and so on with their apps and make it more like desktop class kind of apps, then it might make more sense to get this keyboard. So LumaFusion, for example, I like how you can scroll through the timeline and you can expand the timeline here. There's also a lot of inbuilt shortcuts that this app has, and as you may or may not know, I do all my video editing on LumaFusion. So with this keyboard, if I get familiar with the keyboard shortcuts, then this might actually improve my workflow a bit. If you primarily use your iPad as a tablet and as a typing device second, then I would definitely say get the Folio keyboard. It gives you the protection that you kind of want, and also it gives you the flexibility of typing something if the chance arises that you need to type something. But the best part of the Folio keyboard is that you can use it in different configurations, right? You can hold it like this, or you can place it like this, and it will work just as well. For the Magic Keyboard, this is not an option. You can't really use it like this. I mean, you can try, but the hinge is not strong enough. So if you are pressing on it, it will eventually fall down like that. Okay, so would I recommend this keyboard? I mean, for me, would I recommend this to myself? I would probably say no. But I have a very different workflow to everyone else. I make videos on the iPad. Most people probably don't. If you're a student, or maybe if you have to write a lot of emails, or you do essays and reports and a lot of typing, then sure, maybe it makes sense for the better typing experience. The trackpad is actually quite good. I don't see that many uses for it at the moment until maybe more desktop class apps come out, then the trackpad might become more useful. But at this very current time, I probably wouldn't recommend this for myself. But if you do a lot of typing, then again, depends on how much you value the typing experience. So anyway, I hope this was useful, and thanks for watching.